Hey, violin, this thing. Okay, so Scarf is creating a new genre of videos for YouTube. So here it is. So it's a hardcore musical run, and you have to be perfect in your song from the start to finish. So every note right. Okay. So I am starting the challenge right here. See how long people can last against this. So here we go. Not a single note wrong. Here we go. I'm gonna do gourmet race. Fuck. Welcome, friends. LostScarf here, and it's time for a live vlog because I got nothing better to talk about this week. Why not talk about water? Also, because I got to do I got to do some certifications in a couple months, so it's good to make sure I know what I'm talking about. I have people in the chat here who can ask questions if they're curious. If I'm explaining everything perfectly, they won't ask any questions, I suppose. So, how does water purification work? Well, it's complicated. And where's my mouse? There's my mouse. Okay, so I'm gonna do this in blocks because it's just easier to draw in blocks. Okay, that's not a block. How do I make a block? That's how. Okay, undo. Okay, so first let's talk about source water. So brush it, pencil, source water. Okay, so everyone gets their water from a body of water, obviously. You would get it from, let's see, rivers, lakes, other people's water. So let's just use, for example, San Diego. San Diego gets its water from the Colorado River. They get it from there, and they also get it up north from Northern California, going down, because Northern California gets all the rain, while Southern California has all the population. So that water's got to come down from there. So we get it from like canals, rivers. Those are usually the sources. You can also get water from underground. Underground water is usually pretty clean. You can also get it from the ocean. The ocean's not a good choice because the ocean is extremely expensive to clean. Because here's the fact about source water. All the source waters, for the most part, minus underground to an extent, that is, everything poops in water. Everything. So when you get from a river, you're getting people going to the bathroom. You're getting bears, fish, everything. The ocean, whole lot of poop in there. Everything's got poop in it. That's why you need to purify. That's why you need to clean it up. The whole idea behind water purification, why plants do their thing, it's mimicking what the earth does. So water going through the ground is getting filtered over and over and over again until it gets underground. That's why underground water is usually pretty clean, unless it's been contaminated by something. But for the most part, underground water is usually pretty clean, which is why farmers, they're using underground water all the time. That's why people can pull from wells, because wells, the water's been purified just by the earth. And so what plants do is they're basically just doing what the earth does, but on purpose. Like, focus doing it so that we can get millions of gallons. Like, San Diego makes about, like, let's see here, maybe 100 to 150 million, maybe 160 million a day, depending on if it's summer. That's millions of gallons a day. That much is getting worked on. That's a lot of water. And the main sources are going to be from Northern California, the Colorado River, and sometimes other sources, but usually those two. And then we have an ocean plant as well called the Poseidon plant, which is a cool name, and they pull from the ocean. And that water is a pain in the ass to deal with. I can explain that, but so you get your source water, and then the source water goes to the plant, and the plant's going to have all these different steps to it. And before it gets there, it's going to go through strainers. So it's going to go through, like, just strainers. You got them in your home like a colander kind of thing. It's going to go through strainers, and those strainers are going to block fish and other things from getting through, and things like that. Usually the source water, like, the water we get goes to a lake or goes directly to us. Every plant usually has a lake connected to them, so they have a place to store their water if they have overflow. And so let's say source water is just other places and the lakes or whatever. And so they go through strainers, so fish can't get through, and algae for the most part doesn't get through. Algae grows on the strainer and can clog up the strainer, so they got cleaned up on occasion. But it doesn't get to the plant. Then at the plant, there is just, this entire area is just the plant. So a plant is a big-ass place. Picture a power plant and just have pools of water there, and now you got a water plant instead. That's how they work. So just, instead of those big smokestacks, you got pools. That's the big difference between this and, like, the Simpsons' power plant. And in those pools, they start out at this one pool, like it's a smaller pool right here, and there's these two pools connected to each other. And the first pools do coagulation. I cannot right this coagulation and flocculation. Flocculation. Oh my god, I should just type this in. Coagulation and then flocculation. So what's happening here, coagulation is making things clump together. And you're using coagulants to do that. And those coagulants are usually, in this case, we'll say ferric chloride. So ferric, I'm not doing the letters correctly, but just ferric, which is iron, and chloride, so chlorine. So these two together, ferric chloride, will make all the little things in the water, which will be bacteria, viruses, other little bugs and everything. It'll make all that stuff want to clump together. That's what it does. You usually have ferric chloride. That's one of the coagulants you can use. There's a bunch of other ones, different chemicals. And you also have a polymer. Polymer is a weighing agent which allows things to stick together better and weigh them down so they fall to the ground. So what's happening is these chemicals are mixing with just whatever's in the water, and it's a chemical work right here. Over here in flocculation, it goes right over here, and what flocculation does, it has these little fans, basically, and these fans will rotate. They'll rotate around to gently mix. It's like when you're making chocolate milk. You put the powder in the milk, it just sits there, ain't gonna do nothing. So you got to spin it around to make the stuff happen. And so that's what's going on here. These fans are basically mixing them up so that the stuff gets going there. Then after that, you end up over here, like next to these pools, they go to the next pool, and the next pool is called sedimentation. So sedimentation. So in these pools, there's 4 areas in the pool. There's the inlet, that's where the water's coming in. There's the sludge area. There's the outlet where it's coming out. And then everything else, this entire area is the settling area. Mix up all the particles and whatnot, going together and separates from the main body. Yeah, okay. So the chemicals are mixing together. Well, it's making everything clump up. Like another example would be meatballs. If you just had ground beef just laying there, that's ground beef. But it gets clumped up together to make the meatballs. So what happens here is all the crap in the water is clumping together. And some of it floats to the top, becomes scum, and some of it falls to the bottom to become sludge. So scum and sludge. And what happens is there's these plates on the bottom connected to a chain, connected to chains, and they'll just go and slide across the bottom, pushing the sludge into a dump where the sludge gets dumped into. And that sludge, other things happen with that sludge. I'll explain that later, but all that just gets dumped into an area. So the sludge gets pushed out, and the scum usually gets stopped by weirs. So all this stuff is happening. So sedimentation is happening. Let's go over here. So what happens now is a giant pool like this. And there we go. These are different filters. So let's say this is a set of 8 filters. So the water, so a bunch of the big stuff settles out of the water or flows to the top. And the water then goes to the filters. So type in filters. Filters. So here's the filters. At the filters, the water will go over some weirs, and the weirs will catch the scum. So that way the scum doesn't go over into the filters. A little bit will break off and go in there, but for the most part, it's just the water going in there. So what's happened at this point is a lot of the big bugs have been taken out in the sludge and the scum. Like the big bugs, whatever dirt's in the water, anything, just whatever chemicals are in there are coming out. But there's still little things still in there. There's still bacteria in the water. There's still viruses in the water, and there's a thing called Cryptosporidia, which are these little bugs in the water as well, aside from other things. Also, ferric chloride, if you use too much ferric chloride, the water gets brown or orange, but that's actually a color that you can drink. It just doesn't look nice, so we got to clean that up, and we usually clean up in the filters. So the filters, here's how a filter works. So filter. Here's how a filter works. So a filter usually has a bunch of like, so at the bottom it's got like garnet. Usually has like a garnet sheet right here, or just rocks. And so it's usually got 2 or 3 layers of different things. And this is the way the Egyptians did it back in the day. This is something we learned is, so here's 3 layers of just different kinds of rocks. Usually got, put these different things. Usually got like anthracite coal. You've got like anthracite coal, and then you've got it's a special kind of sand, and then some fine rocks. Garnet is one way. And so what happens is all the water is going to go through the coal and the sand and the rocks. And then at the bottom under it is where all the clean water is going to be. Then this water is going to go out. And then that water is going to go out. The clean water is going to go through here and go out. What gets caught in the coal and the sand and the fine rocks is this is where more viruses get stuck, more bacteria get stuck, and also Cryptosporidia gets stopped here. Here, Cryptosporidia gets stopped. Cryptosporidia are these like little eggs or little bugs, and nothing can kill the eggs. It's like cockroach eggs. They can't be killed. They have to be grabbed, and they get grabbed in the filters. And so that's where you just get all the little messed up, just the things you don't want in your system, obviously. They get caught here. Now, here's what's important is it's not a straining process. The water isn't strained through the filter. The water just trickles through, and instead of, and it gets adsorbed. Adsorption, let me type it out, adsorption, to stick. So, the bacteria, different bacteria and other things stick to the coal and stick to the sand. And like the old school way, the way Egyptians did their water filtering is they had just this big thing of sand and they would filter the water through, and eventually it gets so bad at the top that it can't filter anymore. So you just cut the top off, move it over, and then you filter again. And you just keep doing that. That's how the Egyptians filtered their water. So that's pretty ingenious right there, because it's just mimicking how the Earth does it. The Earth does it, you just got rocks, and rocks, and so water just trickles through the rocks into the underground. That's how that works. And it's the same thing going on here. So this goes through, and it gets filtered out, and then it goes from there to disinfection. Disinfection is just killing whatever's left. So this is where you usually see like chlorine, Cl2. This is where you see chlorine. This is where you see a bunch of other things. It's just killing whatever's left. So it's killing viruses that are still alive. It's killing bacteria that's still alive. Everything's being killed. Chlorine's one way to kill things. Another one is UV light. So the way UV light works is it's basically, it sterilizes the bacteria and the viruses. It sterilizes it. It just burns their balls basically, and they can't reproduce anymore. That's what UV light does. UV light gets dirty because, well, the stuff dies and sticks to the light, and they got to clean the light off. That's another one. Another one is hydrogen peroxide, which is H2O2, I believe that's what it is. I can't remember right now. That's another one that's used, and just different ways of killing all this stuff. And then after that, you go to, I'll just put CW here. I'll type it out. You go to the clear well. So the clear well is where the water sits at the end when you're done with everything. On the way there, let's see here, can escape out. Clear well. Okay. On the way there, does chlorine sterilize it too? Sterilize might be the right word, yeah. Yeah, sterilize is the right word. It kills it. It just freaking kills it. It's dead. Chlorine kills it. Chlorine's the strongest killer. Chlorine gas is the strongest killer. It kills everything. Everything dies to it. The only reason why bug eggs don't die to it is because the eggs are just too strong. When the bugs come out of the eggs, they'll die, but aside from that, they won't, because they're in their egg, because the shell's just too tough. But anything living dies to chlorine. Chlorine kills everything. I work with chlorine gas. Once every 2 days, I could die to this if we screw up. This is not a fun thing to play with. You work with 1-ton cylinders, and it's not a complicated process once you know what you're doing, but during the time it's complicated at first, and then it's dangerous stuff. Chlorine gas is dangerous as hell, but it's safe to drink once it's at the next point because it's super dilute, but it kills everything. At the end here, before it gets to the clear well, the water's gonna have some time where it's just chlorine in the water, so it's killing whatever's in there or whatever disinfectant's in there. And eventually, what you add to the water, you're gonna add. At some point, you're gonna add ammonia, NH3. At some point, you're gonna add NH3 to the water. What ammonia does is it combines to the chlorine, and they create. Let's see if I remember. NCl. Yeah, they just make NCl. So double check. Monochlorine. Yeah, they make monochloramines. They make NH2, I think. There you go. So they make monochloramines. Drew that really badly. So they make these monochloramines. Monochloramines, they keep the water just safe because it just becomes monochloramine is free chlorine, and so it keeps the water safe in the distribution system. So the clear well is the last point of the water plant, and these clear wells, they hold millions of gallons. At one of the plants, each clear well holds, is it 25 feet by? How many millions of gallons is that? Shoot. Oh, I can't remember off the top of my head. We have millions and millions of gallons on hand ready to distribute into the system. And then that water goes to water tanks across San Diego, which are used to just supply different areas and also to maintain pressure in different areas. The pressure in the distribution system is a minimum of, let's see here, I think it's a minimum of 4 PSI. Not 4 PSI, it's the wrong word. 4 something per square foot. It might just be PSI, but no, 4 PSI is nothing. That's not the right word here. It's, the PSI is pretty high. I'm gonna need to know that for the test. It's 4 something, something per square foot. Yeah, per square foot, not square inch. Square inch would be PSI. I think it is 4 per square foot, 4 something per square foot, and that is for firemen. So the water pressure must always be at a certain amount because of firemen, because they need to be able to fight fires. So the water pressure is always this wherever, and you have places that will make the water pressure higher or lower depending on where they are. And we have water tanks all over San Diego to make sure the pressure is the same everywhere, though. You can only have a maximum of 4, let's see, not ppm, I think it's ppm, 4 ppm of chlorine in the water. That's the maximum. After that, that's too much. Minimum of 0.2 in the system. And that's just for me to know for regulations. And just, you want to make sure you at least have a 0.2, but 0.2 is not a lot. You want to have more than that. We usually have about 2.6 milligrams per liter of chlorine. And that's basically the system without going too deep on the numbers. That's basically what it is. Your source, you chemically get the stuff together, you physically make it come together even more, it settles out, and then it gets filtered, and then it gets disinfected, and then it goes to the clear well, and there you go. And you make sure there's a residual of chlorine in the water, so that the reason why you have a residual of chlorine in the water, and so that means we all drink chlorine, or we all bathe in chlorine and such, and the reason for that is because chlorine keeps anything new from getting in. Because there's millions of pipes in any city. And there's going to be cracks in some of those pipes, and things are going to try to get in through those cracks. But because the chlorine's in the water, anything that gets in gets killed and doesn't affect you. So that's what's happening there. Because anywhere in a system, there are plants that just grow and their roots will just break into pipes. That's just what happens. Or there's just chemicals in the ground that will just leach into the pipes. And the idea is with this residual of chlorine, it makes sure that doesn't affect you. That's what it's doing. There's also a lot of things in the water. There's iron in the water. There's, what's the other one? There's 2 things. It's iron and manganese, I think it is. Yeah, iron and manganese are naturally in the water, and it usually also gets removed through the filtering process. And if it doesn't, your water will be kind of like red. That's what'll happen. You can drink it, it's just iron in your water. Usually the iron gets either taken by the filter or it stays in solution, but not to the point that it turns red. So you're probably drinking iron in your water as well. Also calcium. You're also drinking calcium in your water. That affects the hardness of your water. Another thing that's happening besides chlorine, there's also an adding of caustic soda. Caustic soda, I can't remember the chemicals right now of it. I gotta remember that for my test. But caustic soda puts up the pH of the water. Now, the reason why you want to put up the pH of the water is because ferric chloride and polymer are very acidic. Not polymer, the ferric chloride is very acidic. And so to make the water acidic, and then the caustic soda makes it more basic. Basic water in a pipe will create a scale on the pipe, which protects it from things attacking it. Also from acids in there. And that's what's going on there, is you're protecting your pipe in that way, so that, well, nothing leaches out of the pipe as well into the water. Because pipes are made out of, they're either made of iron, they're made out of, what's that stuff we can't breathe in? Asbestos. Pipes are made out of asbestos as well. You can drink asbestos, you just can't breathe it in. So that's why they have pipes of that. Or they have like I think it's polyurethane. It's a polyplastic is also used for pipes. There's a bunch of different things the pipes are made out of. And the coating allows the pipes to not leach into the water, basically. That's what's going on there. Now, another form of filtering besides sand filtration is straining. Is using, they're called micro, nano, ultra. Oh yeah, so microfiltration, nanofiltration. Is it microfiltration, ultrafiltration, holy crap. Microfiltration, ultrafiltration, nanofiltration, and reverse osmosis. If you've drunk Aquafina, you've drunk reverse osmosis water. Aquafina did this like 20, 30 years ago. So reverse osmosis, Aquafina did this maybe like 20 something plus years ago. I actually know a guy who was there when they first did it. And real quick on that, so the way Aquafina did it is they did it because it's one of the first ones doing it. What they would do is they'd make their soda, they'd make Pepsi and everything, and then they would clean the entire plant, the entire system, make it devoid of sugars or any of the stuff in Pepsi, and then they'd purify a bunch of water. Just a ton of water through that system. And then they would make Pepsi again, and then they'd clean it up, and then do water purification again, and then do Pepsi, and then clean it up, or whatever Pepsi product they're doing. They're doing this so they're making their own water for their Pepsi, and also whatever excess gets made into Aquafina. That's what's happening there. But that's a costly process. Eventually, they just built a separate plant. So you got a water plant and a Pepsi plant next to each other. So they're supplying themselves and not having that extra step of having to clean, because obviously that's the better way to do it. But that's how Aquafina rolled. And that's how Pepsi rolled. But reverse osmosis, it's basically just you take a straw. This is literally what it is. So it's a thread kind of thing, but like a straw, and you put a bunch of holes in the straw, and you put the water through, and there's two different ways to go. So you put the water through the straw, and the water comes out through those little holes, and all the crap gets stuck in the straw. The other way to do it would be to suck it into the straw instead. So you got that same straw, and you have the water around the straw, and it sucks the water in, and then goes down the straw to the next area, and all the crap's on the outside. Those are the two different ways it can be used. I've seen both ways of doing it. And so reverse osmosis, what happens here is the holes are so small, only H and O can get through. Nothing else can get through. That is why reverse osmosis is used for ocean water, because salt can't get through. NaCl is bigger than H and O. Like, you can go to the periodic table, and you can see H is that small, and O is that small. So 1 and 8. Na is 11, and Cl is 17. So this is salt. NaCl is salt. H and O, that's smaller. So you get it. So it's so small, only these guys get through, and nothing else gets through. You can say, well, helium, lithium, I think it's barium, boron, and carbon and nitrogen can get through, and that's fine. We don't worry about those. Well, we do a little bit with those, but they're not really in the ocean water, so we don't have to worry about that. It's using more lake water. So H and O get through, and these other ones get through too, but those aren't really in the water. And so all you got is water. All you got is H2O at the end of it. And the problem is why you don't use ocean water is because it's expensive as balls. It costs 8 times as much to make the same amount of water as we can with a water plant. That's what's going on. It's just too expensive to be the ocean. People are like, how do you have a drought? You got the ocean right there. We got a drought because we got the ocean right there because it's too damn expensive to use the ocean. The other thing is toilet to tap. Now, an important thing to know is toilet to tap is this concept that people go ew about, in that you take, your toilet water. You peed in it, you pooped in it, whatever. You did all that stuff in it, you flush it, and it's in the sewers. And that stuff gets gathered up at... it's expensive because it requires a crap ton of electricity to push all that water through the filter. It just uses a ton of electricity, also a ton of chemicals. I'll explain that in a second. But for toilet to tap, to go pure purification from sewage into drinking water, there's all that stuff in there. And so the way I won't go too deep on how... I know how a sewage plant works, but what a sewage plant does is it takes all the crap out, literally, and destroys a bunch of the stuff in there to the point that it can be dumped into the ocean or dumped back into a river. It just reduces a bunch of the crap that's in the water so it can go back into the river or the ocean. That's what a sewage plant does. And then all that crap, just like the sludge here, gets dewatered, the water gets squished out of it and dehydrated, so that all you have is a cake of basically poop or whatever, just sludge poop, and that can be used for farms, like as fertilizer. That's what's going on there. But so that water gets dumped back into the ocean or into a river. So this is the thing. Everyone is doing toilet to tap in some way, shape, or form, unless you're doing groundwater only, because then you have a chance. If you're doing only groundwater, then actually, to an extent, river water probably is going through the earth towards your groundwater, but you're mostly doing rainwater as well. But for the most part, everyone's drunk water. Okay, actually, at the end of the day, everyone's literally touched water that has poop in it. That has had poop in it. Best way to put it. We've all touched it. So toilet to tap is something people keep worrying about, but the truth of the matter is we've always been doing it. The reason why San Diego is so, especially California, is just so high up on standards of water quality is because San Diego is the last one to use the Colorado River. 250 sewage plants dump back into that river. If you want the cleanest water based on Colorado River, you want to live in Colorado, basically, because you get first crack at that water. You only got to worry about, bear poop and fish poop in there. Everyone else down there, like Nevada, I think Utah, New Mexico, Arizona, everyone is dealing with the poop of Colorado and everyone up that river. Everyone's dealing with it. They're drinking it and putting it back in. They're drinking and putting it back in. That's what's happening constantly. And San Diego is the last one in line. So we get the worst of it, pretty much. Actually, we don't. The worst of the worst goes to Mexico. Mexico gets a little bit of that river as well. But we get a pretty bad batch, and that's why we clean it up so well. Let's see here. Okay, so just one plant cleans it up, and then a water plant would just clean it up even more. Like a sewage plant makes it clean enough to put into the river, and then a water plant would clean it up to the point that people can drink it. They're trying to make a plant that's combining both. They're trying to make 3 of those in San Diego. I'm interested in that, but I like where I am right now. So they're trying to make that, and... what's the word here? We'll see how that goes. They're trying to make new regulations and everything for that. I've basically explained everything to a T2 or T3 degree of explanation. A T4 needs to explain the regulations of everything. The regulations of just how much chlorine is okay in the water, which I know for the most part. How much removal. So you need to remove at least 99% of all the bugs of the Cryptosporidia in the filters. 99% of all crypto must be caught in the filters. 99.9% of all bacteria must be destroyed by filters and disinfection. And 99.99% of all viruses must be grabbed by the filters or destroyed by disinfection. Those are regulations. Those things are just 99%, 99.9%, and 99.99%. So, even to this point, there's still like a little bit of everything, but there's so little of it that it's not going to affect anyone too much. There's also a bunch of things to worry about where we used to have chlorine at the start, and what that did is it would kill things earlier, but it would create things called trihalomethanes, which are THMs. Trihalomethanes are linked with cancer causing, so you don't want to drink that. Back in the day, it used to be that, but at the same time, the justification back then was, sure, you're drinking cancer, but that's like 1 in a 100,000 chance of getting cancer from it. And it's better that than drinking viruses and bacteria and all that crap and dying from that. You got a chance of, basically as it is right now, if you drank from the tap every day of your life, you had a chance of developing cancer over like 60, 70 years, 1 in a, like 100,000, 1 in a million chance that you're the one who gets cancer from it. How much the system has changed? For the most part, the system has been this part right here, this has been the same thing for maybe 100 years. The big difference is what the chemicals are, just how fine and how much better the chemicals become, and how much better the sand has become. And also the fact you can use specific filtering systems like reverse osmosis and ultrafiltration, things like that. Like that whole thing with the straws, that is just a newer thing. But sand filtering has been around since we've been people. Like I said, the Egyptians came up with this. We've been doing this for a long time. It just mimics what the Earth does. We've been doing that for millennia. So that's pretty cool right there. We've just refined it over the years. Over the centuries, we've refined water filtration, making it better and better and better, to the point that there's new things getting added. So something that's been added here is, for my plant, we added a new area called, let's see here, there we go. We added the CDC. The CDC, what this does is it introduces chlorine dioxide. So ClO2, it introduces chlorine dioxide to the water before it gets to coagulation. So it's killing a bunch of stuff already, but it does not create THMs. That's the big advantage. It does not create THMs. It's still got chlorine in it, but it doesn't create THMs. That's the advantage to it. The disadvantage is it creates chloride, so that's a different demon to deal with instead of THMs. So we got to make sure the chlorides don't hit a certain number. We got to make sure it doesn't hit a 0.8, and it never does, thankfully, but if it ever did, we'd have to do a bunch of regulation things with that. But so we put this in at the start, kills a bunch of stuff early on so that it gets settled out here. So we're not dealing with as much stuff at the filters and disinfection. That's what's happening there. That's what my plant does. Other plants, what they do is ozone. Another one would be ozone, where instead of having it here, they would have ozone right here. So, O3. Ozone is O3. And ozone just murders stuff. It just kills it. Things get destroyed, and then they get caught in the filters. That's what happens. Double checking in my brain if that's how it works. Yeah, okay, yeah. Before filters. O2 is before filters. So things just get murdered, and then their dead bodies basically get soaked up and get absorbed. Absorption? I think it's absorption. It gets absorbed into the filters. So yeah, their dead bodies get absorbed by the filters. That's how O2 works. O2 wrecks things. The reason why not all places can have O2 is if the source water has boron? Not boron. It starts with a B. It's not barium. No, bromide. So if the source water has bromide in it, O3 would turn into bromate, and bromate is very bad for humans. So any source water that has bromide in it cannot have ozone. My plant can't have ozone because there's bromide in the water. That's why they went with chlorine dioxide instead. That's what's going on there. So that's why, just different things there. Another thing that got added is chlorine gas gets used by a lot of places. And so one plant, what they use instead of chlorine gas is they use sodium hypochlorite. And I'm going to clear this off because I got to show this. Here's a fun thing. This is a very fun concept. This is a pretty cool concept. How you make sodium hypochlorite. Sodium hypochlorite is, let's just have this plate here. This plate here. Positive and negative. And then the water goes through. The water goes through here and goes to another area. So does H2O plus NaCl. So this is such a cool concept. H2O and NaCl. So water and salt go through these plates that are positive and negative. And what happens is it breaks them apart and they become Na, let's see here, O2 over here, O2, NaClH, Cl, NaClH, sodium hypochlorite. Sodium hypochlorite is, NaOCl. Whoops, yeah, this is an H2. Whoops, yeah. So, my bad, I did this backwards. H2, and this is an O. This is an O. So just, we'll type that out. So, we'll type this out. NaOCl, God, I should know this, plus H2. Why did I put O2? That'd just be oxygen. So, NaOCl, H2. So what happens is, you put H2O, NaCl, and it's going through these plates that makes them break apart. And when they come back together, they become H2 and NaOCl. NaOCl is sodium hypochlorite. Sodium hypochlorite is what we use for, what's the word here? Is what we use for residual. This is what we use for the chlorine residual in the water. It's safer than using chlorine gas because chlorine gas can kill your ass if you mess up with it. Worst case scenario with chlorine gas, if a couple of the cylinders broke open, couple mile radius, everyone and everything is dead. It creates a giant green cloud and everything dies. Actually, there's a video I can show of it. I just remembered. I just gotta remember where it is. But everything dies. Everything dies. The rare occurrence where these has happened, at a plant it happened, it burst open, it spread out. All wildlife within 3 miles was dead. It's freaking crazy. This stuff is deadly. It's just what happens. And, oh my god, we're going long, so let me finish up. So that's what it is, this residual and H2. H2 just goes up into the air. H2 goes up into the air. Explaining another thing, how ozone works. Let me explain how ozone works, how you make ozone. So the way you make ozone, let's see over here. So just this whole area, that's a different thing. So the way ozone works, you got this ozone generator. And what happens is a bunch of O2 is in it. Just O2, O2, O2. You just put a bunch of O2 into this generator, and what it does is it creates basically lightning strikes, giant forms of electricity blasting through the generator, and it just cracks them open. Just cracks them open, and then they come back together as O3. That's what happens. So they just get cracked open, they become ozone. That's what happens there. Oxygen goes in, cracks open, becomes ozone instead. We do electricity to make it happen. And then that gets introduced and just murders everything it touches. Ozone is deadly as hell. Don't want to deal with it. It kills things. It kills people. That's what it do. That's ozone. A very simplified explanation of reverse osmosis. New. It's just this. This is literally reverse osmosis right here. You got all the crap out here. Whoops. Undo. You got all the crap out here. Whatever things. Viruses, bacteria, whatever. And only the H can get through. And only the O can get through. While the Na is too damn big. And the Cl is too damn big to get through. Just doesn't make it. Just bounces off. That's what's going on. That's going on with ocean water. Viruses are just too dang big. Just everything's too big. They just bounce off. That's what happens. Only H and O get through, and then it makes H2O. That's how reverse osmosis works. And it takes a crap ton of energy to push it through. Just a bunch of energy to push it. Just like, take that old, like, those old Play-Doh toys where you would just squish it to make a shape or whatever. Just the amount of force you had to do to squish it out. Just think that, but just times a bajillion. There you go. That's how you do it. And that's why it's so expensive. It takes a ton of energy. But here's the thing. You're pushing out all the H2O out of this stuff. So there's all this crap here. All this crap right here. You got to dump it somewhere. It gets dumped back into the ocean. But here's what happens. The Poseidon plant, this is where it gets ridiculous. The Poseidon plant pulls 500 million gallons into it. It creates 50 million gallons a day. That's it. Only makes 50 million. The other 450, it exists to dilute all that crap. The other 450 goes back into the ocean so that it dilutes all the crap that got strained out or that stayed back into the ocean. So it doesn't kill the fish. So it doesn't kill sea lions. So it doesn't kill the dolphins or any of that. That's the idea. Literally, like 89 different groups studied the water around the plant to make sure. Because if they messed up, then they get to just wreck the city for that. Random note, back in the day, New York was really bad, maybe 80 years ago. They used to just put their poop right into the ocean. They just dumped right into the ocean. They didn't do any cleaning. Just went right in. This is before they developed a system to deal with it. And obviously that crap came back. And so what they figured is they would just dump the crap further out into the ocean. But that came back. Like waves pushed back. So New York was really bad and smelly back in the day. Let's see, is there anything else to explain about water on a T3 level? On a basic level? As far as regulations go, there's a bunch of regulations that explain lead and copper. Actually, I need to know the lead and copper rule. Oh god. There's a lot of regulations I need to make sure I know, and I can't say them off the top of my head, which is bad because I need to know that. But on a basic level, I've explained water mostly pretty well. One more would just be an interesting concept. And that is the train system. So, this is pretty cool right here. This is what a different plant does. They use the straw filters, ultrafiltration. And so you have, say, train 1, train 2, train 3, and train 4. So everything that gets filtered through the good water goes here. Train 1, good water. That goes straight over to, this is all filters. This goes to the clear well, so CW. All the crap that's stuck on the outside gets washed out and goes to T2. And here, all the water that gets strained out of here will loop back to 1, and then the crap from there goes to T3, and then loops back, and loops back. And then this stuff becomes sludge and goes to farms. Sludge. It's a pretty cool system where they lose as little water as possible, where the good water goes here, bad water goes here, anything that gets strained out goes back here, and so on. So they minimize loss as much as possible. It's a pretty cool system that some plants do when they only use filters, straining filters. And by the way, oh my god, when you clean these things, you're introducing extremely powerful acids and extremely powerful bases. And the straw filters are giant pools. So there's these giant pools of acid and giant pools of base when you're cleaning them. Do not fall in there. Sometimes birds go into these things, and that's the last you see of them. The good water is determined by it just got through. It just got through. Because the holes are so small, only the good stuff will come through. That's how it works. You know 100% that the good stuff gets through, because the bigger stuff just can't squeeze out. It just can't squeeze through. It just cannot do that. That's not how the science works. Yeah, it's on a basic level explaining how water works. How water cleaning works. And different plants have different things to deal with different situations. Like Alaska. So, In Alaska, the water is so clear and clean looking that it's hard to grab the crap in it, where you actually have to introduce dirt into the water at the start so that the viruses and everything can stick to the dirt so that it comes out. Because the water's just so clear in Alaska. People in Alaska are like, our water's so good, we have to add dirt to it to make it cleaner. It's like, and they say it in that kind of way, but what they don't realize is they just drank it, they'd have stomach aches and all that stuff. It would not be a fun time. So a nice thing is you can make smaller versions of this concept. Usually it's with sand and whatever. And you can bring clean water to places that never had clean water. That's the thing that happens. So there are traveling water purification people who they go to different communities and try to find viable ways for them to have clean water. They go to poorer countries to help them make clean water. It's pretty cool what some water people do. Oh, Alaskan water? Oh, no. Because there's still bugs in there. They're just really tiny bugs. And there's really tiny everything in there. For the Alaskan water, there's really tiny bugs, really tiny viruses, really tiny bacteria. You just can't see them. And they're just so small, they don't clump together at all. Yeah, microscopic things. So you gotta add dirt so they get caught on the dirt. It's like just having like a big... It's Katamari. It's Katamari. That's what it is. Katamari Damacy. You got the big Katamari ball to grab those little things. That's what you got, straight up. That's how it's working. Because that stuff ain't going to clump together. It's just too small to clump together. It doesn't want to clump together. The Katamari rolls them together. That's basically what's going on when you add dirt to Alaskan water to get it going. It's usually called, It's a special clay. It's called, not anthracite clay. I think it's Benacite clay, I think it's called. It's got a cool name. It's a special kind of clay to make the water dirtier. That is it. That is the vlog. That went for a while. I had fun talking. This is good. It's good to go over this stuff and explain this stuff. Because it always just helps people be less ignorant about how water works. Especially the people like you have an ocean next to you, why don't you just pull from there? Because it's expensive as both. That's why you don't pull from there. That's the reason. We still did it just to show that you can, but it's expensive. Very expensive. Like, if you want to know the future of water in other places, you go to California. California is always the cutting edge. It really is. And what we do here, they do it in Canada. They do it in London. London's not... In Britain, that's the word. They do it everywhere. This kind of stuff's everywhere. This is just done everywhere. What's cool is just how they did it back in the day. Back in the day, you needed to be a burly man because you had to be turning valves and wheels all day everywhere to just get different things going. It's a very different kind of job than it is now. Now it's flipping switches. Back then, though, you had to turn the wheels yourself. And if things break down, you still got to turn the wheel yourself now. I've done some wheel turning, and it takes a while. It burns the arms. But that's it. That's it for the vlog. I have fun talking, but I have fun watching and listening, and that's what's all about, having fun. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time, and spread this around if you know anyone who's ignorant about water. Maybe I can explain even better, and maybe I'll do this again in like a year to try to explain even better. Maybe I'll have a better way to draw it as well. But it's good that people learn how water works. Thanks for coming by, and see you next time.